Hello guys, hope all of you are doing great. In the last video, we have seen how to create this user interface for the login page. Today, we are going to add some functionalities here. When I say functionalities, it means what? Like say for example, if I click on this button right now, it is not working. I mean, it is not doing anything. But what we want is as soon as I click on this button, we want some functions to be executed. And more specifically speaking, we want some JavaScript functions to be executed. So in this video, we are going to learn like how to achieve that thing. That is how we can execute some JavaScript function, at some specific points, in a web-based application. Okay, let's begin then. So in the previous video, I said that we'll be using for JavaScript part, we'll be using a inbuilt library or we'll be using a JavaScript library called jQuery. Let's start with that. Let's first see how we can include the jQuery library in our project and how we can make use of jQuery library in a web-based application. Okay. So for that reason, first thing that you do is you do a Google search. Okay. Suppose we do not know anything about jQuery and we want to know something about it. A good place to know about any programming language is W3 School. So what you do is you just do a Google search, jQuery W3 School. So these website will tell you many different features available there in jQuery that you can do using jQuery. But that is not my like if you want, you can explore these different features there available in jQuery library. But that is not my main goal here to bring you, when I bring you here. Certainly, I wanted to introduce you people to this particular site where from where you can write, you can learn about many different programming languages. Like if you want to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SQL, Python, or whatever it is, all these different types of programming languages you can learn from this W3 School website. That is just a side note. Okay, now see, before starting this jQuery, let's at least read something about jQuery. What is this jQuery is? A jQuery is a JavaScript library, and it greatly simplifies JavaScript programming, and it is easy to learn. All these three statements are very true that I can tell you from my experience. Other than that, let's see like why we should use jQuery. Okay, like let's say introduction there might be something. Yes, what you should already know. To use jQuery, you are expected to know that you know HTML, you know CSS, and you know something about JavaScript. So for these HTML and CSS, it's not a big deal to learn. And I guess all of you already know at least some part of these HTML and CSS. CSS we have seen in the previous video, some of the things about CSS. But what about this JavaScript? If people are like, do not worry about this requirement. Okay, even if you do not know JavaScript for this project, that requirement is not important. I'll be telling you the things, whatever it is you need to know, and then from there you can explore things by yourself. Okay. But again, this was also not my main goal to to I know. Uh, my main point was here, like, what is jQuery? If you want, you can read it from here. But the thing is that why we should use jQuery, right? See, many of the biggest companies on the web uses jQuery, such as Google, Microsoft, IBM, and Netflix. These are big companies, and they use jQuery. So why not you use jQuery in your project, right? So that is quite a good, motivation to start working with jQuery. So if you are already motivated enough, then now the next step is that let's see how we can include jQuery or how we can use jQuery in our project. So for that, again, you click on this jQuery get started. There you'll be knowing like what are the like from where you can get this library and how you can include that library with your project. Okay. So there are different ways that you can include jQuery library with your project. The thing is that you'll be using this script tag, which is an HTML tag. Okay, in this script tag, you have to specify what is the source of that jQuery library. Like where is the code for that jQuery library? See here, you remember jQuery is a JavaScript library, and also you remember that for any JavaScript function, the source code is always available at the client side. That is, it is always visible to the client side. Your server side's code always has to send that corresponding JavaScript code to the client machine so that that code can be executed at the client machine. Okay, so if we want to use jQuery, then the first thing is that we need to have that source code. There are different ways that you can include source code of jQuery with your project. What typically people uses some CDN. Okay, that is they use some internet location like this. But the thing is, again, as I said in the previous video, during development, we do not prefer this way of specifying the source, because you see here, since you are developing a web-based application, when you release that application, it is always expected that the server will be connected with the internet. So that time, that is when you deploy, writing the source in this way is not a problem. In fact, that should be the way. However, when you are developing the project, it might happen that you might not have internet connection always, right? So if you specify the source in this way, then it will always need an internet connection. It will always need your computer to be connected to the internet. But that might not happen during the development phase. That might not happen actually. So for that reason, what we do is we create a local copy. We get a local copy of the source code, and we create a local, we get a local copy of the JavaScript file, and then we use that JavaScript file in our project, so that we always do not need the internet connection. So let's see now how we can get a local copy of the JavaScript file, or the code of the jQuery library. Things are very easy. Let's see, there are different ways that actually ways are there. Like, first thing is that you can download it from jquery.com, or what you can do is you can copy this thing. This is like, this will also work, and I'm going to take this approach. See here, it is pointing to a jQuery library actually. So let's see what it is pointing to first. So you copy this link and you paste it in the browser, and you press enter, and you'll be able to see the source code of that particular library. Now see here, jQuery.mean.js. So since the extension is JS, it should give you an idea that this file is actually a JavaScript file. Now, what we want is we want this code to be there in our local computer. So for that reason, what you do is you simply copy this code, and you create, and what you have to do is you have to create a local file here, and you have to paste that code here. Now, where we are going to create that local file? See, in my first video, I said like this will be the structure. So also I said that we'll be using jQuery. So for that reason, we already created a folder there. So in that folder, what you do is in that folder, you create a new file and call it anything you want. You can call it, but I'm calling it, say, jQuery, and extension you have to give as JS to indicate that that is a JS file. Okay, and now a blank file is created, and then then what we want is we want to paste the code that we copied from the internet here. Sorry, I didn't copy, I guess. So okay, you just do one thing. You select everything, you copy this code, and then you paste the code in this particular file. Now, when you paste it, see, by default, it will be pasted as a single line. So you do not need to worry about it. What you do is you close this file, and again, you open this file there, jquery.js. You'll be seeing the code in this way. But the thing is, you never have to actually, in most of the cases, you do not have to. If your only goal is to use jQuery, then you do not have to actually read this source code. It is only, it is to be there, and for that reason, we have copied it. We'll be using this source code programmatically. So we are not going to do any change here in this source code. So you just leave this file as it is. Done. Now, when we do this thing, it means a local copy of the jQuery library is already created in our computer. Now, the next point is that how we can use that. Now, see here, if you see in this website, it said that we can include this library using this script tag. And you already have seen that script tag. If you do not remember, let me show you here. In the previous video, when we included that bootstrap library, you remember that we used this link tag to include a CSS file with our project. Similarly, this bootstrap library also uses some JS code also. So for that reason, when we downloaded bootstrap library, we actually downloaded some JS code also. And this is how we included the JS code with our HTML file. Now, what we want is we want to include another JS file with this HTML file, or with the HTML file, which will be generated by slogin.php. So for that reason, what we're going to do is we're going to use this same script tag again, to achieve the goal. So what we do is we will be writing script tag, that is your script, and then you have to specify the source. Source is equal to what? Like, you have to specify the file name there, and that is the end of the source script tag, and that is close the script tag. Okay, script script tag done. And here only thing left is you have to specify the file name. And where is that file? That is there in our project folder. Inside that we have, see, our project, is it one? Yes, our project one folder. Inside that we have a jQuery folder, so we'll be writing we have is jQuery folder, and inside that we have a file called jQuery.js file. So this is how we can include the file with our HTML code. Let's see whether this file is properly included or not. Okay, how we can check that? Let's do this thing. Now this is our slogin.php, right? So let's do a refresh here. Now see, we know that we can view the source code. So what you do is you right click there and you can view the page source. There you will see that this line is also coming, and this is actually a link to the jQuery library. Now if it is properly connected, then if you click here, then you will be able to see the code as it is shown here in the browser. But if it is not properly connected, suppose I do a mistake here. Suppose I, instead of writing jQuery, I write jQuery one dot something. That folder name I gave wrong. So that time, uh, if you refresh this page here in this way, and if you view the page source, there you'll get this link. But the thing is that if you click on this link, it'll show that file is not found. It means it is not properly connected. Okay, I guess up to this point everything is fine. Now let's make it right. It's not jQuery, it's jQuery 1, it's jQuery. Okay, done. Now jQuery file is included. Now let's check whether it is, it is how we can use it actually. Let's see one use case first. Okay, let me write it without explaining much. Then once it works, then I'll be explaining you the things in some details. Okay. No. If you remember my previous explanation, then what I said you is that for each file that generates some user interface, we will be creating one associated JavaScript file also. And that JavaScript file we want to send back to the client so that whatever the code we wrote in that JavaScript file, those codes can be executed at the client side. So using that philosophy, what we will do is that here with this slogin.php, since this is a PHP file that is generating some user interface, so what we'll do is we'll also create a JavaScript file associated with it. So for that reason, you right click there, you click on new file, and you give it a name. Any name if you want, you can give. You can call it a.js, b.js, no problem with that. But to easily for easy maintenance, because as time goes on, we'll be creating multiple user interface files, and we want to know like which JavaScript file is related to which PHP file. So for that reason, I'll be giving the same name. So for slogin.php file, the corresponding one JavaScript file, I'll be calling like slogin.js. Although I gave the same name, as I said, it is not mandatory. You can call this JavaScript file anything as you want. Okay, done. That file is also created. Now let's write some code there. So, okay, let me write it first. As soon as the document is ready, I want to execute a function, and that function might take some input. So let it write it in this way, and then that's all. What that function I want is, inside that function, I want to call the JavaScript function alert. Inside that, I write okay. Now, this JavaScript file I created. Now, the thing is that, see, when I see, you remember from here, like from this explanation again, see, here, this JavaScript file, I have created this JavaScript file, but the thing is that that JavaScript file has to be sent from the server side to the client side, right? So that part is yet left. So how we can do that? Again, we have to make use of the same thing actually, like we have to make use of this script tag. So what we want is not only the jQuery file we have to include here, also we want to include the JavaScript file that is associated with these that we want to send to the client when along with the interface generated by this slogin.php. So for that reason, again, we'll be using this script tag, and there what we want to specify, where is our JavaScript file, we have to specify it here. So it is there in our project user interface, and there is this slogin.js. So our project one. So inside that we have this user interface, and there we have this slogin.js. So yes, now that file is also connected. Now let's see if I refresh this page, what happens. If everything is fine, then what I am expecting is I am expecting an OK message on the screen. Let's see whether it works or not. I'm refreshing the page, and as soon as I refresh the page, then it is showing me this OK message on the screen. Let's say if I do some changes there in this slogin.js file, like instead of OK, I'm writing some gardeners character there, and then what will happen is as soon as I refresh my page, I'll see that message on the screen. So from here, one thing you can make a make a guess at least that what this alert function is doing. It is showing you those pop-up window on the screen along with the text that you have written here. Like see if I write here another alert there, and I write say like anything like another one. So this is another alert. And then if I refresh this page, then what will happen is it will show me two alerts. This is my first alert. See here, the first alert is this. Now the alert will wait. It will not execute any other code which is below there as soon as no until and unless I click on this OK button. Now, if I click on this OK, the next alert will be showing you on the screen. Okay, done. Up to this point, things should make sense to you. That is, what are the things that we learned, like how we can include jQuery library, and then how we can write a JavaScript file, and then how we can send that JavaScript file to the client side. Up to that portion, things should make sense. Okay. Now let's like dig into the details of this jQuery library. Like what is this actually? Like when I write dollar symbol and then function, why did I write something like this? And how did I know that I have to write something like this? What is the meaning of all this stuff? So to do that, again, what you do is you go to this W3 school, and there you will get some idea about the things that I just wrote. So you see jQuery.syntax here. You click there. There are different syntaxes. I'll be telling you about all this stuff when I encounter them. But for the time being, what I use this function actually, the document.ready event, and that is the first one. As if you are when you learn C programming language, what is the first thing that you learn? You learn about the main function. That is the entry point, right? Like all the C program starts execution at the main function. The same way for jQuery, this is sort of the entry point. Now see here. Here also it is written, like you might have noticed that all these jQuery methods in our examples are inside a document.ready event. Why we have to write something like this? The reasons are explained here. This is to prevent any jQuery code from running before the document is finished loading or it is ready. Now see, when you execute this code, like this page, see when I refresh this page, like the document is ready in the sense that the HTML object is the document object is created. Now see, with HTML there is a concept of document. Okay, now in an HTML page you can think of as a document, and in that document those elements are the building block of that document. So the first thing that should be done before executing any JavaScript function is to wait for that document to load completely. Okay, that is all the elements are created in the HTML file, and after that we want to execute some JavaScript function. Why is it so? See, usually a JavaScript function is used to manipulate the elements present there in HTML in an HTML file. So for that reason, the first thing that we should always wait is that first let the HTML object create, let that HTML document create first all the elements, let it load first, and then we want to execute some JavaScript function. So if we want that thing to happen programmatically, then what we can do is we can make use of the jQuery function in this way. That is, whatever the jQuery functions we are going to write the jQuery function always inside these, like where this red line, like this, whatever the code we want to write, we'll be writing inside this particular function, inside this ready function. Okay, it means what? See, as soon as the document is ready, we want to execute a function. As soon as the document is ready, we want to execute a function, and this is the body of the function. Inside the body of the function, whatever the code you write, that code will be executed when the document is ready. Now see, I didn't write my code in this way actually, although I'm saying that I should write my code in this way. But if you see, I didn't write my code in this way. I wrote something like this. Do not you worry, that is just a shorthand notation of writing the same thing. See here, the jQuery team has also created an even shorter method for the document ready event. So here is the thing. So I can write it either in this way or this way. Both of them will work in the same way. But if you want, you can follow this one also. Like now, as soon as the document is ready, you want to you want to execute a function. So what you do is, instead of writing it in this way, say what you can do is you can write it in this way. As soon as dollar document, okay, you can write dollar document. Okay, and then as soon as that document is ready, you want to execute a function. This thing, this is by default, it looks something like this. And when the document is ready, you want to execute a function. You want to execute a function. This is, you know the function, these are the parameters, and this is the body of the function. And what is the code you have to write as the body of the function? Okay, so that's why you can write it in this way. Say for example, alert, say here you put a semicolon and then write okay. So this is not, I mean, I can write my code certainly in this way, but to make it more readable, what you can do is, see here, this is the function that I want to execute. This is the starting of the function. So I can write the body of the function in a different line. And then this is the end of the function. So this here, this is the function start. This is the end of the function. And this closing parenthesis is coming from these ready. Okay. So inside the body of the function, I'm writing alert okay. So if I now refresh my page, you'll see an OK message on the screen. This is the thing that you need to remember. Like whenever you are using a jQuery function, whatever the code that you will be writing, you will be writing those jQuery code always inside this ready function. Okay, to prevent any like you can write outside also, but the thing is it might lead you to some unexpected behavior. Because you see, if we execute a jQuery function, like suppose we want to, you will come to know, like when we go into the details, then things will make sense. Okay, but for the time being, this is just the starting point. You should this is how you should use it actually. Okay, now let's dig into some more details about this jQuery. Like what are the things that we can do? As I said, no, this jQuery function is a JavaScript library. Basically, these JavaScript functions are used to, to access the HTML element and to manipulate the HTML element and all this stuff. Let's see how we can achieve that. Say, for example, what we want to do is that, like, as soon as, now see, if I refresh this page without doing anything, this alert message is coming. Sometimes it is useful that as soon as the page is loaded, I want to do something. So that time you can do some stuff there. But in most of the times, what we want is not only as soon as the page is loaded, but sometimes we want, like, we want to write something called as event-driven programming, in the sense that I want something to happen only when the user does something. Like say, for example, if the user clicks on this button, I want something to happen. Or if the user, or if the, if this particular control loses focus, then I want something to happen. If this particular control loses focus, then I want something to happen. When I say loses focus means, see here, right now, this is the active control. If I click here, this will become the active control and this control will lose focus. So those are called as something called as events. Okay, like when a control loses its focus, that is also an event. When you click on a button or anything, not only a button, if you click on this level, if you want to do, if you want something to happen, you can achieve that thing. And you can achieve those things using jQuery very easily. Let's start now how we can do that actually. The first thing is that, okay, let's see, suppose we want to, like, we want something to happen when I click on this login button. How we can achieve that thing? Okay, let's see. inside this. So as you remember, whatever the code you're going to write, you will always write the code inside this ready function. So let that thing be like this. Let me give some space there, and then let that okay also be there, no problem, it's not doing any harm. And then what we want is that, say if I click on that button, if I click on this particular button, this button, then I want something to happen. How we can achieve that? Okay, so you can make use of this type of notation. Say dollar is the, it means that you are using jQuery. Okay, in JavaScript, whenever you are using dollar, it means that you are using actually jQuery library. Now in this document means the current document, dot on, this is a function actually that allows you to bind a function at a particular event. Although it doesn't make any sense to you right now, just hold on, it will start making sense. Okay, so dollar on, then what I want is on the click event of what. Yes, now of which button I need to, this button I want, see there might be two buttons there, although there is only one button right now, but there might be two, three, four, five buttons there. But I want something to happen when I click on this particular button. So for that reason, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to give a name to this button so that you can refer to that button programmatically. See, you remember the concept of variable. Why do we need a variable? Because programmatically, if we want to refer to a particular memory location, we need to give a name to that memory location. And one way of doing it, we can, we can declare a variable. It means you can think like that variable is just a name to a particular memory location where we have stored some data. And if whenever we want to access that piece of data, we can use the name of the variable to refer to the piece of the data, right? Same thing here also. Like if see programmatically, if I want to access this particular button, then I must have to give some name to the button. That is quite logical, right? So what you do is, first thing is that in this slogin as page, slogin.php page, you see this button tag here. Now in this button tag, I didn't give any name to the button. Okay, now if programmatic, like in HTML, if you want to give a name to a particular element, not only a button, you can give a name to any element, any HTML element. And the way how you do it is using this ID attribute. It means what, you are giving an ID to this particular button. And what ID you want to give, it is like anything that you want to like you're just giving an ID to that particular button, which can be accessed programmatically. Or you can say that it is the name of the button that you are giving it to the button, so that programmatically, that is using JavaScript, whenever you want to access that button, you'll be using this particular name. So for that reason, I'm giving it a name. Say, for example, I'm calling it button login. You can call it any name, A, B, C, D, but I'm trying to give some meaningful name here. Okay. So now from this point onwards, this button will have a name. Okay. Now this is the name of the button. Now you go to your JavaScript file there. Then what we want is, that is on the click event of this particular button. But before that, again, you have to write a special symbol there, because this is actually a selector. Okay, like, I mean, the way we want to select a particular HTML element. Sometimes it is the ID of the buttons, or ID of an element, or sometimes it could be the class name of the element, or sometimes it could be even the name of the element, like button or something. So for that reason, if it is an ID that you are using, so you'll be using this special symbol hash in front of the name. Okay, it means that you are actually looking for an element whose ID is button login. Okay, we'll be using sometimes you will see in the coming videos, sometimes you'll be using a dot there, or sometimes you might not use anything there. Okay, but do not you worry. For the time being, you just remember that since we are trying to access an element using its ID, for that reason we have written this hash symbol in front of it. So what we're trying to do is, on the click event of this particular button, what we want to do is, we want to execute a function. We want to execute a function. That function might take some input, and this is the body of the function. Okay, and then if you want, you can put a semicolon there. Now, See, this is one single instruction in jQuery. Now, inside this function, like what should be the body of the function? That is what you want to happen when the user clicks on that particular button. You will write inside this, inside this flower bracket. Okay, you know that thing, right? That is as the body of the function. So say, for example, I just want to, again here, I want to display an alert message for the time being. And it is saying that, a button clicked or say clicked. Let's see whether this thing works or not. If it works, then we'll move further. Now, what is happening here is, see, as soon as the document is ready, will be this alert message will come on the screen. Okay, that is without doing anything, you will see this message. And after that, this part of the code will not be executed until and unless you click on that particular button. Because you see here itself, you have written that is on the click event of this particular button whose id is, see here, whose id, in the sense like how we are mentioning that by writing this special symbol has there. It means that we are looking for an element whose id is button login. So if that particular element is clicked, it could be a button or it could be anything. If that particular element is clicked, then we want this thing to happen. That is whatever you have written from this flower bracket to this flower bracket, whatever the code it is, that part of the code we want to execute. So right now we have written only one instruction, that is alert clicked. Let's see whether it works or not. Okay, let's go there. And this is the default OK message that came from the document ready function. That is, as soon as the document is ready, this message is coming. And you already know like why that OK is coming. Now, the next thing is that now nothing will happen until and unless I click on this button, right? Now, suppose I click on this button, what is our expectation is that as soon as I click on this button, that alert message should come that is clicked. Let's click on this button and see whether it is working or not. Let's click me. Okay, I'm clicking on the button, but nothing is happening. So it means that something is wrong there in my code. Let's go back to our code and see where could be the mistake. If you see here, there is a spelling mistake I did. That should be document. Okay, that word should be right, that document. Then I just refresh the page and see whether it works or not. I click on this login button. Now it is working fine now. As soon as I click on this login button, then it is coming. See here, see document.ready function is executed only once when when the document is ready for the first time. But this click event, and no matter how many times I click here on this button, that click event will be raised, and as a result, whatever the code that we wrote inside that click event, that will be executed. Now see, as I said, that this click event, on which button, that this id, this should not be the id of a button always. That is, suppose I want, just for the sake of an example I'm telling you, that suppose if I click on this particular level, then also I want something to happen. If I click on this text box, then also I want something to happen. If I click on this, then also I want something to happen. If I click on that, then also I want something to happen. Then the same type of code you can write actually. So, okay, let's see an example. Say, for example, if I click on this particular button, then I want an event to be raised and I want some JavaScript function to be executed. Okay, let's see how do we do that. The first thing is that we need to have an idea of this particular level, right? So let's go back to our PHP code there and see if we have given some name to that roll number text there. See here, this thing, this is an element. See, this label is an element, although it is displayed as some normal text there, but internally in the HTML document object, that is an element actually. And so if you can access that element, you can give it a name, you can give that element a name, and you can access that element programmatically. So the way we did the thing with the button, the same way we are going to do the thing with this label also. So for example, what I'm doing is I'm giving it an ID. Okay, so ID is equal to, I'm calling it say label roll number, LBL roll number. Okay, and then what we want is, if we click on this label button, then we want some again alert message to come. We'll move forward from that point, but for the time being, okay, just some example. So there, like say now, what we want to do is that again for practice you can do a copy paste, but for practice it's a good idea that now a few things you type by yourself so that you remember the things. So what we want is that, like, what on the click event, so we want to write some code for the click event of an element there. So here what you do is you just write the same thing, document, and then there on the click event. This will allow you to see not only the click event, you can actually link you can write code for many different events, and I'll be showing you in a moment what are the different events there. But again, for this one we will stick with this click event. Okay, that is on the click event of the element whose ID is, and how do you write that? That by writing that symbol has, whose ID is LBL roll number. Most probably that is the ID that I gave, but it should be a match. Okay, so you just do one thing, you copy the ID from here and you paste it here for safety. And then on the click event dot of that particular element, what we want to execute a function. We want to execute a function, and this should be the body of the function. And inside that body, simply I'll be writing like alert, and then again I'll be writing a label, a label is clicked, some alert message. Let's see whether it works or not. Okay, this is the first one, and then I click on this button. It is also working fine. No matter how many times I click, it is coming. Now if I click on this level, that then also one alert should come here. Let's see. If I click here, see, if I click on this level, then also this a label is click message is coming. It means what? That particular function is fired. That particular function is getting executed. But if I click on this level, nothing will happen. If I double click, no matter what I do with this level, nothing will happen. But if I click here, this message is coming. Now I guess things are making some sense to you, right? That click event, at least that click event is clear to you. Now, as I said, no, like it is not only the click event that you can actually capture. You can capture many different events in jQuery. But if you want to know a complete list of those events, then certainly this is a good source. So here you see jQuery events there. jQuery event method. If you want, you can read them. That's okay, fine. But these are the different events. See, mouse events are like click, double click, mouse enter, mouse leave. Keyboard events are like this. See, events means what? That when something happens, an event. Okay, when some specific thing happens, like specific thing is like when I click using my mouse, or when I double click using my mouse, or simply when the mouse enters into that particular element there, or when the mouse leaves that element, or from keyboard when I press some key. All these are different events actually, and you can write code against all these events based on your need. Okay, now say for example these two are like this one. Say for example focus or blur, or these two events. Let's say write some code for this particular focus event. Okay, so how do you do that? Say focus event. Okay, focus event is useful when say for example I want, like as soon as this particular text box becomes a like an active control, I want to execute some code. So let's see how do you do that. So for that reason, again, since we're going to use it programmatically, I want that particular text box to give a name, and that is your which one it is. This roll number is login text box. This is the class, but I want this thing to have a name also. So I'll be calling it ID is equal to, I'm calling it a txt roll number. Okay? And for that particular text box, what we want is, I'm just pasting it here so that I remember. And then I can write like the same thing, but for sometime what I'll do is I'll copy and paste. And then this is not the click event anymore I'm interested in. I'm interested in the event called focus, FOCUS. That is on the focus event of which element of this particular element. What we want is we want these alert message to come. That is that is on focus or something, some message you display. And let's execute the code and see. Message is coming ready function, and then here, like if this particular control gets the focus, it means what? If this control becomes the active control. See, as soon as I click on this particular control, see, on focus function is called, that particular event is raised, and then as a result, whatever the code we wrote there, that code is executed, and as a result you are getting this message on the screen. Okay, so this is like sort of creating a problem, because every time it is getting that focus, it is showing me this message. But anyhow, that was that is not something that I wanted to do. I just wanted to show you an example, like how you can capture different events there. Okay, so anyhow, we right now, at least for the time being, we are not interested in that focus event. So this is creating a like sort of chain effect there. So because why is it happening? Because as soon as I click on this button, focus is lost from this text box. But again, this text box, this alert message is gone. Again, this text box receives its focus. So for that reason, like in a chain, it just has created a like chain of getting focus, losing focus, getting focus, losing focus. For that reason, this effect is coming. So yeah, okay, fine, but our goal is fulfilled. Like we just wanted to know like how we can capture different events there. Okay, done. Now let's instead of capturing this focus event, let's try something else there with respect to the same text box. So what we can do is, say for example, key press event. Okay, that is, we want to capture this key press event for the same text box, not the focus event. Then what will happen is, I just want to change this message also. Say for example, on key press, what happens? Let's see. Okay, and then I refresh this page. I might have to close it actually. Okay, so I'm closing it and I'm pasting it here one more time, and this is done. And then key pressed, it means what? Here, if I type something from my keyboard, as soon as I press a key, see, I'm pressing a D key actually. It is not visible right now on this text box. But as soon as I press my key, that function is called. And this is the result of that function. If I click on OK, the function is over, and I'll be able to see that D on the screen. Now suppose I'm going to press W. But when I press W, before actually showing that W in the text box, what is happening is that key pressed event is raised, and then these, as a result, whatever the function or whatever the code I wrote, that code is executed. And my code is written in such a way that it shows an alert message on the screen. So for that reason, you're seeing that alert message on the screen. And if I clear that alert, you'll be seeing that W on the screen. So most probably you got some idea about the event driven programming. I mean, like how you can capture different events in jQuery and how you can write codes corresponding to different events. Okay, but for the time being, even if all these different events are coming into the picture, but for the time being, you should concentrate only on a specific type of event, that is the click event. And will be, like, although you can apply, you can capture these different events for different elements. So we'll be sticking with the click event of some buttons there on the screen, because that makes that is quite natural, right? That is, we assume always that whenever it is a button, then only we can click on that button, something like that. But the things are, the concept is quite general. You can extend the concept to, in any way you want. Okay, having said so, like, done. Okay, we realize, like, okay, this is how we can capture some of the events and all. Done. What are the other things that we can do, right? One thing you should realize that here, see, somehow we are actually accessing these elements, right, programmatically. Like, we gave a name to the button, and that is how we access that button. Now, this is one way. I mean, what you can do is, say, suppose for example, one need is that if you click, okay, before actually doing it, let me remove this alert. Okay, I do not want it anymore. So you can write comment the way you can write C style comment actually, that is double forward slash. If you write twice, that will be considered as a comment. These I do not want, so I commented it, and then I do not want these two functions also. Okay, so I'll be deleting them permanently. Done. And then what we want is, say, first let's create a problem. I mean, first formulate a problem, and then we'll try to solve that problem, and during that process we'll learn the things. Okay, now say for example, as soon as I click on this particular button, I want to display on the screen what the user has written on this particular text box and on this particular text box. Okay, that is what the user has written as the roll number, as well as what the user has written as the password. Okay, got it? That is what we want to achieve. Like, see here, not here, here. What we want to achieve is that, say for example, say I guess sure, yeah, what we want to, oh, it's not connected, that's why it's happening. Sometimes it happens actually. Yeah. And what we want is that this is your page, this is your no, some web page is there, and there is a text box. Say for example, the text box is this is the label, roll number, and this is the specific text box I'm talking about, and there is this OK button. Now what we want is, as soon as the user clicks on this particular button, I want some JavaScript function to be executed. What that function should do is, it should first retrieve the value, or retrieve the text written in the text box. That is what we want actually, and then display it on the screen is like, using an alert, you can display the text on the screen. Let's see how we can do that actually. So for that reason, what we need to do is, okay, let me take you to this W3 School site one more time. There I will point to this jQuery and HTML, jQuery get or jQuery set, anywhere you can click. There you will see something like this. See, uh, text function is there. This text function you can use to set or get the text content of the selected element, text content of the selected element. Or HTML function you can use to set or get the HTML content of the selected element. And this value function you can use to set or get the value of form fields. Form fields in the sense, like if it is a text box, you want to get the value. If it is a checkbox, you want to get the value. Those sort of things. I'll be telling you the things in more details when we encounter them. But for the time being, we are interested in this value function, okay? That is sets or returns the value of form field. Okay, if it is not clear, then just wait for some time, it will be clear. Then the thing is that, now see here, one thing you should realize here, that selected element, like of a particular element, and how we can select element using jQuery. So that is the first question. Now to do that thing, you see here, the syntax of jQuery says you that, like if you want to select an element, this is the general notation of selecting an element, like dollar and then the selector here, like which element you want to select. This is sort of like, I'm explaining the things in terms of theory, but let's do it practically and it will make sense. But we'll be using this syntax. Okay, this is the syntax to select any element using jQuery. How we can make use of that syntax, let's see. Let's say, this is the problem that we want to solve. Retrieve the text written in the text box, this particular text box, as soon as the user clicks on this button. How we are going to do that? So for that reason, the first thing that we have to give is we have to give a name to this text box. So already a name is given to the text box, that is called as text roll number, txt roll number. We want to know the value of this particular text box. So how do you do this? The first thing is that on the click event of that particular button, we want that thing to happen. So we'll be writing like here inside this function, because we know that this function will be executed when the user clicks on that particular button. Now the second thing is that we should be able to select that element. We should be able to retrieve the element. Okay, the things are very easy actually. What you do is you write dollar symbol, and within that, see the syntax here, dollar, and within the bracket you have to write this selector. How do you write this selector? You already have used it. This is a selector actually. Okay, like if you're trying to select an element using its id, so you'll be writing dollar, and then if you're trying to select an element using its id, you'll be writing this hash symbol in front of it, and then you have to write name of the element that you are looking for. So the name of the element is txt roll number. Most probably that is the name of the element. So make sure txt roll number. Yeah, and then of these element, I want to know what is the value which is there against this particular element. Now see, this is a form element in the sense that this is an input element. Okay, so it has a value property. So if I want to know the value of that, I'll just call this function val as it is shown here. Like this get element. Like if you want to get the value, you'll be using this value, or if you want, you can use this text or HTML property also. but you should be, there are some basic differences there. When you use them, you'll come to know. But anyhow, we are using right now this particular val function. Okay, let's see. Now this thing, this will return you the value which is written there, or it will return you the text which is written there in this particular text box. But we want to show it on the screen. So for that, for the time being, we know only one method. So we'll be using this alert function, and then we'll be writing this thing. That is alert, and then this is the value. What value the user has written on this particular text box. Let's see it whether it works or not. Okay. I refresh and I click on this login button. As soon as I click on login button, you see, as a result, this alert clicked is coming, and that's as a result, that's why you're seeing this message. And after that, I click it, and then when I click on OK, then it is showing me Boral, because this is the thing which is written there in this particular text box, right? Done. Now, if I write something else there, like something else there, I click on this, click the first one, and then this is the text which is written there. Okay, that's good. Then okay, that same way, if you want, like, suppose I now do not want this default one, so I'm putting it in comment. And this is this is something which is written. Now it is showing me what is written in the first text box. Now suppose I want to know what is written in the second text box. Same thing I'll be applying. So alert, and this is the content of the second text box. Obviously not, because this will give me the, like, this thing, like which element I am looking for which element I am taking the value. So for that reason, if I want to retrieve the value of the second text box, then this one is the second text box, see, input tag. Now I also have to give it a name. Say for example, I'm giving it a name, say ID, and then I'm writing there txt password. Okay, and then I want to retrieve this value, and then I want to write it here. Done. Okay, and then if I do that, let's see what happens if I refresh the page. I write, say input is CSM21009, and the password I wrote, say for example DFRE, something I wrote. Okay, it is not visible, but if I click on login, let's see what happens. It is showing me that, okay, CSN, this thing is written in the first text box, and then DFRE, as I said, this thing is written in the second text box. That is, programmatically, we can retrieve the content of, or we can retrieve the value of at least these text boxes. Okay. Or suppose now I write here, as soon as the user clicks on this button, I want to display, what I want to display the value of the first level, right? This level has a name, right? This roll number level, this roll number level has a name here, this. So I want to retrieve the value of that thing. Let's see whether it works there or not. Okay, I just am pasting the name here for the time being so that I can remember, but the same function I'll be using here. And then the name of the element is now this, whether it works there or not. Okay, let's see. I click on, I change the password, I write something there, and I click on login. The first one is fine. The second one is, yeah, you believe me, that is the thing that I type. And the third one is showing me a blank. That is, the value of this, the value property of this level is actually nothing. It doesn't have any value. Then what is this then? That roll number, that where is it, that roll number, actually it is not the value property, it is the text property. Okay, so for that reason, what we can do is, instead of writing a val there, I can write the text, and it should work now. Okay, and refresh, and then say this is something that I write, username, password, some garbage, and then first one username, this is password, and then see, as soon as I write text, then it is coming like, okay, the text property of this level is the roll number. Now you might be thinking where to use value, where to use text. Now see, one general idea is that if it is an input element, like say for example a text box, or for example a drop down menu, or for example checkbox, or a any input element through which the user can give some input, then the value property is valid. And if it is not an input element, some other element, then you can use either the text property, or you can use the HTML property. You might be thinking where you can use the HTML property. Now see, there are some, so if you know HTML, then you know that there are some elements, say for example, a div. That is a container element in the sense that inside div you can write some valid HTML code, right? So in that case, you can use actually these HTML property. In our coming video, certainly we'll be using actually that HTML property to dynamically generate some user interface using JavaScript. But for the time being, you should understand like the basic things like the value property or the text property. If you know how to use them properly, then rest of the things also you'll be able to use smoothly. Don't worry. Okay. Now, okay, suppose, but then also, like just for the sake of an example, I cannot hold myself back from showing you the output of HTML. Like when we write here HTML, what happens? Will it give me something? I do not think. Like for a level property, there is no internal. Level is not a container, no? I mean, it might not have anything, any HTML content inside it. So it might show you a blank. I'm just expecting it to be that way. So I'm writing this thing there, and clicking here, here. Oh, it is showing the HTML content itself is, roll number. Okay, that's fine then. Why is it behaving that way? Where is it? This is the HTML content it is assuming. It's the roll number. Anyhow, even if it works, that's fine. Now, say for example, we want to see what is the HTML content for this inner container. You remember from our previous class, like from our previous video, that everything, all this thing from here to here, what we did is we wrote it inside a inner div. Actually, let's see here which one was our inner div. This is our inner div, right? This div was inner div. Now suppose we want to see what is the HTML content of that particular div. Okay, so for that reason, what I do is I give it a name. For the time being, I'm just sticking with accessing an element using its ID. That's like just the starting point. But certainly, you believe me, there are some other ways also of accessing an element. So I'm right now, for the time being, I'm sticking with this approach. Like I'll be giving an ID to an element, and using that ID, I'll be accessing the element in a JavaScript program. So suppose I give an ID to this inner div actually. Okay, this is a div whose class is inner div, and I'm giving it a name now specifically so that I can access that element programmatically. So I'm calling it, say again, inner div. No problem. That name and class could be same. So I'm just calling it, say, inner div. Okay. But certainly it might be confusing for you, right? So for that reason, let me give it another name. So you can call it anything. Say, my inner div. Now just to give it a different name. For the sake of giving it a different name, I'm giving it a different name. Now this is the name of this particular div. And suppose I want to know what is the HTML content of this div. Then let's see how do we do that. So I'm like here in this. As soon as the user clicks on that particular button, now I'm not interested in these two lines there because you already know what they are doing. Then what I'll do is this is the name of the div for which I want to know what is the in HTML content. So what I'll do is I'll copy this and I'll be pasting it here, and then alert this div. This is the name of the div. This is the name of the div. Of these divs, whatever the HTML content is there. Now see, what is the HTML content of this div? What is the HTML content of this div? This div has this HTML, like starting from this div. Okay, let me format it a bit. This div. This is your inner div from here, like this part from here to here, all these. This is the inner div of inner HTML of this particular div, right? Now let's see whether that thing comes on the screen or not. Okay, so this dot html, I mean, of this div HTML content, I want to show it in the form of an alert on the screen. That is what my intention is when I write this program. So as soon as the user clicks on this button, that thing should appear on the screen. Let's see. I refresh this page and I click on this button, and then it is showing me exactly, see here, class container. Is it so? See here, inner div. Inside this div, whatever the HTML content it is there, it is showing you that content actually. See, starting for a class container till no dot it is showing it. But anyhow, it is showing you the HTML content there, right? Now, if it is, that should give you some idea actually how you can access programmatically an HTML element, in JavaScript. although we are using jQuery, ultimately jQuery is a JavaScript library. So basically, we're doing the things using JavaScript. And one thing you see here, when you read that, when you read the description of this function, you see that this text, HTML and value, they here what we are doing is we are only getting the value. That is, it returns. We are using the return value. That is, we are trying to access, we are trying to get the value out of the element. We never try to set the value out of the element, but here it is clearly written that we also, if you want, we can set the value of these elements also. I mean, set these different properties also. If it is true, it means what? See, we can actually write any HTML code. Like we can on the fly, we can generate some HTML code. Like if if we use this HTML function, or we can set the value of a text box using this value function, or we can set the level of a we can set the content of a level, the text of a level using this text function. Let's see. Let's try to do that. Let's try that thing actually. Whatever I'm saying is right or wrong. Okay, for that reason, what I'll do is I'm just giving you some basic intro, okay, so that things becomes easy for you, easy for you to follow. In next videos, when we do the next use case, say for example, when we do another, when we try to develop another page, these things I'll certainly not explain you. I'll be simply using these concepts. But since it is the first use case, then I guess I thought like in some way explanation is needed. Like you can certainly blindly type the code and you can get the output, that is okay, fine. But if you really want to make the best use of the time that you invest while doing this project, then it's a good idea that you actually understand at least some basics of the thing. Okay, and also these things will be useful when you'll be using with some advanced frameworks like AngularJS or React, like that. So these concepts will make sense there also. So it's a good thing that you learn things properly. You spend some time on it and you learn them properly. Try the examples that I'm writing here, and try to get a good hold on the concept. Okay, now let's see here with these now from this description we come to know that not only we can get the value, at the same time we can set the value also. It means what? Like programmatically, if I want, I can set the value of this text box to anything I want. I can set the text of this level to anything I want, right? Okay, let's do it, and then we can talk about it. Right, now let's go to this JavaScript function, and then I put this thing in comment. Now the alert is not important for us now. Now what we do is, say for example, programmatically we want to change the value of this text box. That is, as soon as the user clicks on this particular button, I want to write here hello world on this particular text box. Let's see how easily we can do that. See, as soon as what we want to achieve is, again, one more time, let me tell you, as soon as the user clicks on this button, I want to write hello world here. How we are going to achieve that? Let's see. Simple, right? Sir, I know that how to do this. So you write like dollar, and the first thing is, again, the same thing. First thing is you get the element first. Which element you are talking about? I want to, the element that we are talking about right now is this element. Like, see, because you see, do not you get confused. Now, whatever we are writing, the code means we are writing the code inside the click event of this button. So that part is already done. Now, when the user clicks on this button, what I want to do is I want to change the text, or I want to change the value of the, of this txt roll number text box. So for that reason, what I'll do is first I'll grab that text box. So dollar, and the way I can grab it is dollar hash, because I'm using an ID, and then I have to write the name of that text box, the ID of the text box, txt roll number. Okay, this is the element I want to do something with this. This time, what I want to do is, if I write simply val, we know that it returns us the value of that text box, but we do not want to get the value. We want to set the value. So for that reason, what we can do is this dot val is equal to, I'll write something here, say for example, hello world. Not that way. What we'll do is we'll write this dot val within double quotation, hello world. Let's see whether it works or not. Click here, see hello world. As soon as I click there, programmatically, I'm changing the value of this text box. Okay, hello world, like that. Now, suppose I want to change the value of the password box also. So there you see dollar. And first thing is you grab the element that you want to change, the element for which you want to change the value. So dollar, and then I'm writing here hash, and then txt password. Is it okay? It has a name, so password. Okay. And then there, I want to set the value to be anything I type here, you'll be seeing only some dots. So no matter what I type, you'll be seeing some dots there. You will not, but anyhow, since you'll be seeing more number of dots there as soon as I click on this button. Hello world, some more number of dots, because the text is a bit bigger, was a bit bigger when I wrote it there. But anyhow, I guess you got the idea what am I talking about. One more thing, let's like let's at least see how useful that html part could be for us, this html thing. Not only sets, when we if we want to retrieve the html content, then yeah, it showed us like what is the internal html content of a particular element. But let's see, the same html function we can use to create some user interface dynamically. Yeah, believe me, it's true. Let's see how we can do that. So for that reason, what we want to do is let me show you something here. That what I want is that, yeah, this is the thing that okay, this is the thing that I want here. What I want is, as soon as I click on this login button, I want, for some reason, I want to create here another text box, and I want to create here another button somewhere here. Okay, that is, only thing is that that is of interest is that I want to create some element on the fly as soon as I click on this login button. That is, using JavaScript, we are going to create some graphical graphical element there on the screen, like some HTML element on the screen. I mean, on the fly. Let's see how to do that. Okay, let's say what okay, let's do it. For that reason, one thing is that you want to write the, see here what this function allows you to do. This function allows you to do, it allows you to set the content of selected element. Okay, it means what, one element should be there whose content you are going to change. Okay, so for that reason, what I'm going to do is, for that reason, I'm going to create here one dummy element. This trick we'll be using many a times in the coming videos also. So but it's a good thing that utilizes this part also. Now see, like in these interface, I have this main div there, right? Like this main div starts here, and this main div starts here and it ends here, right? Now below that main div, let me create another div. Let me create another div there, and you know, let me change the background color of this div. Like let me type here style and background color, background, and red, to make it very prominent there. Okay, and then let's say I write something there, and let's first see how it looks like. Oh, this is there below, because you remember we set the height of the main div to be 100 vertical height. So that's why the main entire page, like 100% of the available space, was covered by that main div, and then this part here. Okay, but suppose I want that thing to be here, so let me change the position of this div from here to somewhere here, like after the inner div. Okay, that is where the 5 vertical height here, if you remember, and below here, somewhere here, I want it to appear. So let's see where that inner div finishes. Like here is the end of the inner div here, and then here I want that div. Okay, let's first see how does it look like. Oh, it's coming there because I set the display property to be flex. Oh, things now are not in a way that I expect them to happen. So okay, anyhow, don't worry. Let me do something there. This inner div. This is inner div, right? And inside this inner div, I have this container. Where does this container finish? Here. The container ends here. The two containers. And okay, no problem. Let's put that thing inside this container. Inside this container. Okay. Again, this is HTML I'm doing, so do not you worry. Here, okay, now I got it in the proper place. Say, for some reason, I want, now this div is there. And what I want to do is here, I want to create some button. So this is just a placeholder. I'm using it as a placeholder. It means what? When the page loads for the first time, I do not want anything to be there. Here I'm putting a red color just to show you, and I wrote some text there just to show you that there is a div there. Okay, but we do not want anything to be there actually. So by default, when the page loads, we do not want anything there. Okay, and see here. Suppose now inside this div, I want to put a button. Then how will you write the HTML code for that? You'll be writing, okay, I want to put a button, so I'll be writing here a button tag, and then I'll be writing that's all. You'll be writing a button tag, and then that's all. And then you'll be writing some text there. And then suppose you want also a text box there, so you'll be writing sorry, you'll be writing the input tag, right? Input, and then text is equal to sorry, type is equal to text, type is equal to text, and that's all the input tag and the button tag. And let's see how it looks like if we have those two elements there. See, this is an input tag, this is a button tag. Okay, and this is your div by default. Now suppose these two elements were not there initially when the page was loaded. What we want is these two elements we want to create on the fly using JavaScript. That is, as soon as the user clicks on this button, then only we want to create these two elements. Okay, let's see how to do that. Now we are on track. Now these two I do not want by default. Okay, that is these two elements, that input element and then the button element. By default, like when the page is loaded for the first time, they are not there. We want to create them on the fly. Let's do it now. We are ready. So in this login page, we know that this HTML function we can use to set or get the HTML content of an element. So what we will do is, first thing is that we have to grab the element whose content we are going to write. So first thing is we have to grab the element. So grab it. So we know the ID of the element, and what is the ID of the element whose content, HTML content we want to change. The ID of the element is right now none, so we have to give an ID to this. So ID is equal to, let's give it an ID. Say dynamic div or something, or say okay, dynamic div. Okay, I'm calling it dynamic div. These divs internal HTML content we want to write programmatically, so we'll be writing here dynamic div. We are grabbing that div element, and for that div element I want to set the HTML content to something. Now what is that something actually? So that something is actually a text. So what you do is okay, let me introduce something called as a variable. A variable is when you write var keyword in JavaScript, it means you are declaring a variable. So I'm declaring a variable, I'm calling it x, and that is a string variable I want. So I'm in that string variable, I'm pasting this much, this thing there, this thing there. X is equal to input type equal to text button. Some red marks are coming. So as I said, those are sort of things that you know that is not very good. I mean, that is not very pleasant to have, right? But again, as a programmer, that's quite common for you. And for that reason, do not need to worry. You just have to have some patience and see what might be wrong there. One thing I want to tell you is that in JavaScript, you can write string within double quotation or single quotation. But the thing is that, again, we want this now double quotation to be there as part of the HTML syntax. So what we can do is we can include this, we can use single quotation to represent this string actually. These are common problems. If you use them, you will understand. Anyhow, what am I doing is basically, see, this thing is just a string. I mean, string, a collection of some letters there, the C string, whatever that C string, the same thing is here also. The string, a string is just a collection of some alphanumeric characters there. Done. Now, that string, these string, I want to set as the HTML of these, elements. So how easy it is? You just have to write here an X, that's all. It means what? The HTML of this particular element, I want to be the same as the value of this particular string. You might be thinking, sir, why did you store it in a variable X? Yeah, it is true. I could have avoid, the using of this particular variable, but yeah, it is true. I could have written it directly in this way. Like I could have, written it like this, and within single quotation, I could have written it in this way also. Both are true. Okay, fine. But for some reason, I prefer to store the string in a variable and then use that variable later on. Okay, because see, most of the times what will happen is that these HTML code will be generating using some program. That program will return us the content in the form of a string, and that content we want to put as the HTML content of some other element, and those sort of things. For that reason, I'm using it in that way. But anyhow, you are right. You can directly write this string here itself. But this is my approach of doing the thing. No problem, right? Then let's see whether we achieve the thing or not. See, when we load this page for the first time, nothing is there. I mean, here nothing is there. Like if as soon as I click on this button, see, immediately on the fly from somewhere, these two elements are created. Now you see one thing: these two elements were not hidden. You see, there are two concepts. They were hidden, and when I click on this button, I made them visible. That is one approach, certainly. But the thing is, here it is not the case. They were not hidden. They were not there. There was no existence of this input tags or this button there when the page was loaded for the first time. These two elements were created on the fly. However, this div was there. Like I just changed the HTML content of this red div. This div must be there, like, because see, if you want to put some HTML content, you have to put it somewhere. So that somewhere should be there, but what you want inside that somewhere, you can generate it dynamically, programmatically. Those sort of things we'll be using when we proceed, in our future videos. But this concept you should digest, so that things become very easy when you encounter them in some real use. Okay, I guess if people understood up to this point, things are clear. We are not like we are not discussing very difficult topics here. We're just talking about some very simple things. However, these things needs practice. If you want to use them properly, you have to do some practice. One thing I want to tell you here, one thing, as a programmer, okay, like if you think yourself as a programmer, then this thing should make sense to you. See, a programmer and a carpenter both are same in some sense. In what sense? See, a carpenter, what does a carpenter do? They build things, they make things, right? Now see, the tool set, your programming language, what are the different programming languages, and what are the different features of those programming languages, that is the toolbox of the carpenter. Okay, and then suppose a carpenter has to make a table. Okay, and then there are two different carpenter. One carpenter has a very hi-fi toolbox with him, like all these electrical devices that can cut wood very fast, that can put a nail very fast, and all those hi-fi, high technology tools are there with one carpenter. Another carpenter, he has all those traditional tools, like one hammer, one saw to cut the woods and all. But those traditional tools are there with this carpenter. The table, both these carpenters can make table, but the thing is that who will make a better table? It actually doesn't depend much on the toolbox that the carpenters have. It actually depends on the capability of the carpenter, like the imagination power of the carpenter, how he can actually imagine the table, how skillful, how much practice that carpenter has using those tools and all this stuff. Certainly that toolbox is useful. Like if you are an experienced carpenter, then if I give some more advanced tools to an experienced carpenter, then certainly it will help that carpenter. But the power that you know that need of that carpenter's capability, you cannot avoid that. You cannot actually bypass that carpenter's capability just by having some extraordinary toolbox with you. So the same thing with the programmer also. Like if you want to call yourself to be a good programmer, then no matter what programming language it's you are using, maybe C or maybe JavaScript or any other programming language, the things will you'll become a good programmer only when you do a lots of practice. Knowing a lots of different functions is a different thing. I know that function, I know this function does that, this function does does this. That is as if you are having a hi-fi toolbox with you. But the thing is how to use them in some real use case, how to use them in some real application, that will only come with practice. So you people have to do practice. See here, what are the functions I'm telling you, like this text, HTML, those things were already there in this W3 School website. I mean, I'm not telling you anything new. Only thing that I'm telling you is that you can use those things in these different situations. I'll be showing you how you can use these basic concepts to make a complete project. Like when you are developing a project, how you can make use of these small concepts there. Okay, that is my goal. Okay, now see, we know how to use these things there, like these HTML and all. Um, you know, this is now X. Okay, now what it is doing is that it is creating some HTML on the fly, and what HTML, whatever it is represented by this particular string. Okay, so now we know at least some of the, like, how we can capture an event, how we can retrieve the value of a of any HTML element, how we can set the value of an HTML element, how we can set the HTML content of a container HTML element. All this basic stuff we have seen. Now let's move one step further towards our goal. The first thing that we want to do is one simple example here again. These things we do not want, okay? So we'll be putting it inside comment. Okay, okay, okay. Then what we want is one thing that we want is that, and with these I'll be I'll finish this video here after doing this last task, and then the rest of the thing we'll be doing in the subsequent videos. Okay, otherwise this video is going too big, becoming too big, and it will be difficult for me to edit the video and doing a lot other things there with the video. So for that reason, I'll continue in the next video after doing this last task. Now let's see what is the last task. Okay, now say for example, refresh this page, done. And if I click on this button, nothing is happening. Now, one thing I want to make sure that, like, say, for example, this is the case, and this is the case. This is our one, this last task will be there in our project. Till now, whatever I did here you can see that I'm putting everything in comment. It means like those things I did only to explain you the concepts. But here, this thing is important for the project. What is the important thing for the project is that if the user clicks on this login button without writing any of without writing something in this username and password field, then it should show the user an error message that no input fields cannot be empty. That you know already, right? That is, if the user clicks right without, don't write anything here, don't write anything here, simply clicks here, then one message we want to show here that says that roll number and password field should not be empty. Suppose the user writes some roll number there, doesn't write any password, then also we want the user to show the same message that roll number or password should not be empty. Okay, the user will come to know which one is empty. We can go, like, we can fine tune these error message by displaying different colors there. Like, okay, this one is red because no, this one is red because this is not filled. Those sort of things certainly you can do, but we'll stick with the simplest version of input validation, basically. That we will first, as soon as the user click on this button, we want to validate the input, whether the user has given the proper input or not, no, that the expected input or not. Okay, so that is the thing that we are going to do. Okay, we know that actually how to do that. More or less, we have seen the thing. So first thing that we want to do is to achieve that thing. What we will do is we will retrieve the value of the username and the password that the user has entered. So we know how to do that, right? Say I'll be declaring some variables. Say for example, variable username. There I want to store the value of the string that the user has written in the text, roll number text box. Okay, so you can write it in this way. Grab the ID, like grab the element by its ID. ID is txt roll number, and of that elements the value property. You can call the value function there, and you will get the what the user has written as the username. And the same thing I'll do with this password also. So I'll be copying and pasting. I'm calling this variable a password, and here I'm writing txt password like this thing. I have the username, I have the password. Let's first see whether they are there or not properly. Now username, and then you write plus password. Now you might be thinking, sir, what you're doing with this plus symbol? Don't, I guess if people are aware of string concatenation, right? So in JavaScript, this plus symbol actually does string concatenation. Okay, so string concatenation means username is a string, it will be treated as a string, and then password is also a string, and both these two I want to concatenate. um, and in the middle part I want to put a comma. Say for some reason I want to put a comma. So this is your username, this is a password, comma separated. This is how I want to display. I guess this is a simple task, right? I mean, simple thing. You can you understand this part, right? Now here I refresh this page and I click on this. I write some password as xxx and username as rrr, and then click on login. So it is showing me rrr comma xxs. So username concatenated. See here something plus comma was within double quotation plus then the password. So this is the thing which is coming, which is as expected. But suppose I do not write anything here and I click on OK, then you'll see that the first part is blank and then comma and then the last part. Suppose I do not write anything here and then I click on this button, then you'll see only the comma, nothing left, nothing is there on the left, nothing is there on the right. Right? Now this is what we have to check actually, whether whether this username is a blank string or not, or whether this password is a blank string or not. Okay, and how we know that a string is blank? If the length of the string is 0, it means that the string is blank, isn't it? So for that reason, what I'll do is, let's see how we can find the length of a string in using JavaScript. So finding the length of a string using JavaScript is not a problem. See here, as a programmer, you need to know what to do. If you know what to do, how to do that thing, you will get it. Like suppose at this point you need to know like how to find the length of the string, and suppose you do not remember the JavaScript function. The only thing what you can do is, certainly you can do a Google search like how to find the length of a string in JavaScript. You'll get the answer, but you do not have to do it here. I'm doing it. So what you do is you just say you declare another variable, say variable var, and there I want to store the length of this username string. Okay, I do not need all these variables. If I want, I can write it in a single line, but and I wanted to do the thing step by step. For that reason, I'm declaring different variables. So for example, I'm calling it length of the username, LUN, and then I'm writing here, this is the name of the string, UN, and then there is a function called length in JavaScript that returns the length of a string. So here un.length, lenZth. Okay, this is the function that you can use. And then say alert. Let's see whether it works or not. Okay, alert length of this username. Okay, let's first see what we are expecting here from here. Yes, whatever it is, the length of this string, whatever the user writes in this roll number text box, how many characters are there, that should be displayed as an alert. Okay, that is our expectation. So let's refresh this page and write here, click on this login button. It should return us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters. So it is returning us 5 characters. Okay, that's good. But if I do not write anything, let's see what comes. 0, yeah, good. But suppose instead of writing space only, but I'm just writing, I'm trying to give some trick there. Like, okay, I have not written anything visually, but there I wrote there some white spaces, which is not a valid which cannot be considered as a valid username, right? Now if I want to know what is the length, then it is showing me that the length is 13, although it looks like the user has not written anything. Programmatically, if we see the length, it is saying me that it is 13. But we do not want to consider, or suppose the username is, suppose you consider that the username is actually ABC, but the user wrote the username in this way. So that time I want to consider this ABC as a valid username, although there are some trailing spaces there, or there are some trailing at the end, there might be some space there. Automatically I want to remove those strings, those black white space characters from the string. So to do that thing in JavaScript, there is a function called as trim. Okay, so what you do is, first thing is, you declare a variable trimmed username. What is the trimmed username? And then you write username dot trim. That I'm calling this trim function. That trim function, as the name itself indicates, what does it do is, it will trim the white spaces from both the end. Okay, that means, where is my pen? Yeah, here. Suppose you have a string ABC, but you gave some white spaces there, 1 2 3 1 2. Then this trim function, what it will do is, it will cut those white spaces from the beginning and end, and it will return you only this much. So for example, you give a string like this. I mean, these two quotations are not there in the string, just to show you that this is a string of some 1 2 3 4 5 white space. Suppose this string is called as A. So if you call A dot trim, then what will happen is, this will return you a string, say B, and in that case B will be nothing. B will be nothing, a blank string actually, which has 0 characters. Okay, so I guess if people got the idea of the stream function. So what am I doing is, first I'm accessing what programmatically what the user has written in this txt roll number, in this text box, what the user has written in the password text box, and then I'm like, trimming the username, like by removing the the white space at the front and at the end. Okay, and after that, whatever it is left of that string, I want to count the the length function. So this is, I will actually count the length function for trim the username, and I'll display it on the screen. Okay, so if the user enters space, and that should display as 0, the length of the actual username should be 0. Okay, let's try this thing. Suppose I write here, say 1 2 3 4 5. This time 5 is fine, no problem. I give some space, 1 2 3 4 5 6. Totally there are 10 characters, but as an output I still want 5. As an output, still it is giving me 5. Okay, and here I write nothing. There obviously I'll get a 0, but suppose I want to trick, so I'll give some white spaces there, and then I click on this, but still I'm getting a 0 because of that trim function. So yeah, we are actually discarding those white spaces. So that problem is also solved. Now rest of the things are easy. We just want to check that like, we'll consider the input as valid only when both these username and the password are some non-zero length strings, right? And otherwise we'll consider that thing as an invalid input. Okay, so the same thing I'll be doing in the password also. So I'll be declaring 2 pairs of variables. Again, as I said, no, you can avoid the using of these variables, but I wanted to do the things again. I'm saying I wanted to do the things step by step, so that you can easily understand the thing. And for that reason, I'm doing it in this way. But again, in the coming videos, I might actually not I might not follow this approach. I might write things in a single go. Uh, that time I'll be expecting you to be to understand the things properly. But since it is just the beginning, I'm going with you know I'm just going sort of slowly, so that everybody can follow the things what is happening. So trimmed username, the same way I'll be writing here trimmed password, and then I'll be writing here length of the password, here length of password, and done. And here, instead of trimmed, here sorry, this username dot trim, no, here it is password dot trim, password dot trim. The same thing that we want to do, that first we'll trim the password, and then we will find the length of that trimmed password. Done. And then we want to do some operation here, like the if else function. Okay, now when is it a valid case, when it is an invalid case? Now see, we know that things are valid if the length of the username is not equal to 0, and and the length of the password is not equal to 0, in that case it is valid. Otherwise it is invalid, right? So in that case, I just, for the time being, it is like alert, a valid input, and otherwise these are invalid input. Like here it is invalid input. Okay, let's see whether it works or not. Okay, I type here login, it says that valid input. But suppose I do not type the password and I click on login, it says invalid input. Suppose I type some password but I do not give the username and I click on login, invalid input. Okay, suppose I try to trick and I give some white spaces as username, white spaces as password, and I click, this says that invalid input. Okay, so that's all. But the thing is that we do not want, yeah, that is okay, fine, like you can display an alert message. But suppose for some reason we do not want to display an alert message, but we want to display another text here. Okay, so for that reason, what we want is we will be using a label here, and then dynamically, that is programmatically, we will change the text of the label. Like if it is valid input, we do not have to show anything, because as soon as it is valid input, it will redirect the page to different page. But if it is an invalid input, I want to show something here. Okay, and again, you see here, if I click here, it's just saying me that it is invalid input, but it is not saying like which input is invalid, whether this one or this one or this one. Like you can actually, certainly you can extend the code to pinpoint the, the actual reason of the error, like why it is considered as an invalid input. There might be some other conditions also, like it should be 5 letter long, or it should be 10 letter long, or all those things. Okay, but I just try to give you the main idea. So only one thing left here is that I want to display, I do not want to display the alert message, I just want to display the error message here. If there is any error with the input, I want to display the thing here, and if there is no error, I want nothing to be displayed here. Okay, so for that reason I want a label here actually at this point. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go to my source code. See here, this button is there inside this div, and this div, and then inside this div I want a label here. So I'll be creating a label, and I'll give it an ID. Now, right now, you know, like by this time you already know what is the importance of this ID, at least one importance of the ID. So I'll be calling it's a LBL error message, and that's all. And I do not want any text to be there. Okay, and now what we want is if this is an invalid, if this is a valid input, then what we want to do is, if some text were already there in this in this uh, if some text were already there in this level, then we want to set that text to be okay. And then is an error case, then we'll be writing here let's see now, login, no message is coming here. Suppose I do not give the password and write, it's saying that invalid input. Okay, somewhere here it is coming. You can using some CSS, you can actually bring this invalid input message on the left hand side also, but I'll not do that actually. If you want, you can do that, but it will take me some more time. But since I already told you the different concepts there, how to achieve such things, so I'll not go into the details of like how to actually do that. Okay, I leave that part up to you. But anyhow, our goal is fulfilled. Now if the user gives any wrong input, say for example the user doesn't type anything there in the roll number and text password field, and simply clicks on this login button, it says that this is an invalid input. And if the user gives some seemingly good input, then this message will vanish. So we did up to the no we finished. I'll finish the video here, and from this point onwards, in the next video what we'll do is we will see like how using, see, at this point till now what we learned is that how we can execute some JavaScript function, like at different events, right? So one specific event we are talking about is the click event of an element. Now from there, suppose now what we want to do is that if the user clicks on this button, I want to do some AJAX call. Now that AJAX call part we'll be learning in the next video. Till then, have a nice day.